take you a little tour around this project I got going on here. The steam launch Artemis. So Artemis came to me from the Heston Steam Museum down in LaPorte, Indiana, and they've had her sitting in a barn for about 20 years or so, and just thought I'd give you a little tour of it. Starting to open up the aft section there to get some of the rot out of it, but it's got quite a history. So the hull of the boat, that's basically the bottom section, not including the top pilot house here, that is a 1944 United States Navy motor whaleboat that was actually built. There's a placard in there. It was built in 1944. It is oak frame on cedar planking, or with cedar planking rather, and got some damage on a few planks. There's quite a few of the internal frames that actually are rotted out on the on both sides here, especially in these forward sections. But it was diesel when it was first built in 1944, and then it was converted to steam actually in the 60s, and then that's the time that the upper structure was put on it. And then it's had several owners throughout its life and traveled pretty much, seems like, across the entire United States, ending up in Gary, Indiana, from Gary, Indiana being in LaPorte, Indiana at the Heston Steam Museum, and from there being brought finally in the barn here in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Christmas Eve 2021. So here are a few of the historical photos of the boat. So this is Artemis here, possibly sometime in the 60s, saying this is the Bang and Go Back race in Bedwell Harbor. This is some of the original photo of an engine, or the engine that's in it right now. It is a compounding steam engine, meaning that the steam is used in the high pressure cylinder and then the low pressure cylinder. Artemis in the, what I think is the 70s or somewhere in there, and again sometime possibly in the 70s. And we can see that the roof line is a little different at that time. On the aft section, she was sporting a mast here at that time as well, and the name placard and that stuff's a little bit different on the forward side at that time. These were taken out in McConnell Island. That's what it says. Artemis and Fire Canoe. There's Fire Canoe over there. That's another quite famous boat from this era. There's all the boats right there. Artemis Crest, Fire Canoe, and San Juan Queen right here. Boat of Artemis. And here, I believe, is in the 90s when it was purchased. by Ron Fossum. I think that's Ron, but I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest. And that's when it was refit again in the 90s. And a ton of work was done then. The boiler was rebuilt, the engine was rebuilt at that time. And then another photo, I'm not quite sure when that was taken, but from the paint scheme, it looks like possibly could have been when Ron had it. And then I've got a few other just random photos in here. For all build. This is what the boiler looks like. So it's a water tube boiler, meaning that the water flows through the tubes. Firebox is shown right down here, and versus a vertical fire tube or horizontal fire tube boiler where the fire would go through the tubes versus the water. Again, the compounding engine. A couple other photos from, I'm assuming, the 90s. Assuming the 90s. So whoever put her together originally just did a great job building this thing. I mean, it's detailed with just the way the door tracks were put together. We've got bronze in here as a bearing surface with these that close. Glass. You know, somebody made all this stuff, put this deck on here. They got up here, there's two hatches that will slide out and back. On the other side, I've got that one closed. There's a nice little seating area back here. I got to put back with a U-shape. So there was one in here that was U-shaped with the battery bank being on this side and the diesel tank back there, and then that side was storage, but I had to take that out so I could get to the timbers that are in there to replace those. Quite a bit of dry rot in that upper stern post there, but envisioning a U-shape seat's going to go back in here at some point. And this is what I'm currently working on. I've got the aft section opened up right here where basically this post goes in here from this point up, and then there's another post timber that comes down almost like on a triangle here and then back. So all of that is being replaced start, and then from there so start working forward on frames and fastening the planking. At least that's the current plan. And this side of the boat is basically in about the same condition as the other side. This side, there is definitely some dry rot here on the deck that's going to have to be addressed. There's dry rot up here in this piece of plywood, which will have to be addressed. But thankfully, it's all wood, and wood can be replaced relatively easy. Again, we've got another sliding window here. Forward section. So this is the, down underneath there is the rudder post here. Got all that out of it. Here's the close-up of that. So originally these whaleboats would have had what I think would be seats going down each side here, so that basically the people would be sitting on the side, kind of on a seat looking in. This would hold 22 men. The engine would have been about right here, but again, none of this would have been on top. It would have just been an open cab or open boat basically, and then it would have been steered with a tiller, likely, you know, tiller back here. This is actually the emergency tiller right there for this boat. I don't think it's the original one, but it is an emergency tiller in case there was a cable failure on the steering system. But these are the timbers. I've got this all cleaned out and some planks sprung back there so I can inspect that, and that's where the new timber is going to go and back up in there, and the new planking will all have to be refastened. But so far back here it's been relatively solid. Nothing going on in these frames right here anyway. Those are fastened, but there are some spots where it's been sistered for sure, where these steam bent oak frames just over time they give out. So that one there had been sistered up. This one over here had been sistered up. So basically my plan at this point is to just start working on the aft section and then working my way forward and repairing each area as I go. So working just basically on the frames at this point, and then from there I'll get into I'm working on the garboard planks down there, the garboard plank being the plank that's up against the keel, and then I'll start working on planking, figuring that out once we have the shape of the boat in the right orientation. So you can see I got the drive shaft out of it here, where the shaft log comes through. She's got two sliding doors here, both again kind of slide back, close off. And then there's actually a table that can hook onto this that would allow you to sit back here, kind of in this U-shaped configuration, and have a table coming out of the inside there. So then over on this side, port side, we've got the head right here. There was just a little small chemical toilet in there, and then we've got a couple of the blow down valves right there for blowing the boiler down. The inside is got all this nice wood in here that's been built. Side, the trim, and you can kind of see so right here there used to actually be, this is where the generator was for this boat, and they had an alternator right here with a little Stewart Cirrus steam engine. So this would have been the exhaust, and then the feed line for that little steam engine to generate 12-volt power for this boat. Unfortunately, that has disappeared at this point, so I have to figure out something different on that. But it's got a nice tachometer for the main engine. That was, I believe, a tachometer here for the auxiliary engine, and then just a nice organized panel up there for everything. This is the steam plant on the port side. So basically what this is you've got the high pressure cylinder here and the low pressure cylinder there, and steam comes in, this valve chest goes in here, the high pressure cylinder, then over the low pressure cylinder, and then out this side right here. And this is a condensing unit. So what it's got is on this valve here, we can adjust the fresh water coming in, or excuse me, meter the fresh water going out, which in turn meters the water going through the condenser. The fresh water is pulled up through there's a through hole underneath this to cool the steam. So the steam's going to come out of here, go through the condenser. The condenser is going to condense the steam back to water. Down there, there's a vacuum pump that's running off of the front shaft of the engine. So the vacuum pump's going to draw vacuum on this side of the condenser and then pump that hot water back up here to the hot well, is what it's called. Then that hot water would be re-injected back into the boiler for later use. So again, looking at the steam plant on this side, you can just see the organization on all the oilers here. So she's got a manual feed pump for pumping water. It's got an injector down there, and then there is a water pump on the runs off this little chain here and shaft over to the other side of the engine. So she's got all of her gauges up here. With you've got pressure gauge over there on the top left runs the auxiliaries. Your center is your main boiler pressure. The left, let's see, that left one there, that's plumbed down to, I think, the injector or somewhere down there. And then you've got your vacuum gauge. This one's not being used at this point. This will be your vacuum on the vacuum pump down there for your condenser. You've got this is what they call a pop-off valve set at 175 psi. This is your main steam coming off the top of the boiler here. This would have goes right over here to your throttle. This is a manual oiler sight glass. So again, here's that hot well right here that we have set up for bringing that water back through. So right on this side, we can see there's quite a few frames that definitely need to be replaced on this side here. And then coming forward, there's frames that are sprung off the planking at this point. But again, someone just did a very nice job initially on putting this thing together, and all the detail of the pilot house and the time that it took to, run the whistle properly, and all these cords that are running for different pulley systems. Then again, on this side, we see a similar story where we've got frames that have been sistered together. We got frames that are broken, frames down there that are rotted. We've got all sorts of issues on that side. So here's the boiler. It's got a Beckett 12-volt burner on it right now. Burns diesel, so you fire it up and basically like a fuel oil blower in there, in this water tube boiler. It's got a stack blower here where you can basically inject some steam going up the stack to create an artificial draft. There is a damper on this, and then this would be the whistle. Right here there's a day tank for your couple gallons of diesel right there. Originally it was set up with a little steam atomizing burner, which would have been fed right off of this valve right there. Not sure if I'm going back to that, or if I'm going to use this 12-volt burner, or I'm going to burn wood, or what I'm going to do. So it's to be determined at this point on what we would like to use for fuel. And it's got these cool bells back here, so you can do your engine room whistle and reverse, or whatever that's supposed to mean. A couple vents right here. Steam launch Artemis. Restoration video number 1, January 7th, 2022.